Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another Saturday morning show, the Sports Crib, our fantasy show with the Smash Up Sports Crew. And I see Reggie's already here, so let's get this show on the road, gentlemen. How's everybody doing this bright Saturday morning?
It's a lovely day, fellas. Great day to be here. Always a pleasure to be on with you guys talking some fantasy here.
Yeah, winding down the last, 4 weeks before we start getting into the playoffs and whatnot. So, Reggie, how have things been for you?
Amazingly great, guys. So I was hoping that we would all be here for this week's episode due to the fact that I remember talking to you guys last week about how I got cute with my Brock Purdy situation. I was like, I'm going to get cute. I'm going to run Brock Purdy out there. I'm going to sit Jaden Daniels, and I'm going to sweat out this entire Sunday, just sweat out the entire match. Guys, that proved to be very, very good for me. I won my week because I started Brock Purdy. If I had started Jaden Daniels, I would have lost last week. I started Brock Purdy, and I won. Brock Purdy did way better in my league than Jaden. So in my league, with my scoring, Jaden Daniels got less than 10 points. And Brock Purdy in my league with my scoring got like 30. So that ended up being a great move for me. If you guys want to get cute with your lineups, I am here to tell you that it can be advantageous. It worked out very well for me.
I want to pretend that we were supportive of James, but what do I get the feeling we told him he is getting too cute, and this is his chance to glow.
You guys were like, you guys felt it was cute. You saw the rationale because when I explained to you guys that the guy that I was going up against had Deebo Samuel, you guys were a little bit more understanding at that point. And then when I explained also that I had Christian McCaffrey and I want to kind of do the McCaffrey-Purdy stack type situation, you guys were a little more understandable, but there was a consensus of getting a little cute there last week for sure.
But I get it. I think covering your opponent is something that makes sense. I'm in a interesting hybrid league myself where you actually have I won't get all the details of it, but among other things, you have both a traditional lineup and you set a DFS lineup. One of my favorite tricks sometimes is to pick my opponent's star, especially if I'm favored, if I feel good about it. Pick his star to put in my DFS. Even if it's not technically the optimal lineup, at least if he's got Lamar Jackson blows up. At least I get all those points as well, and it makes it harder for him to mount a comeback and pull away.
Nice to hedge right there, huh? Nice
exactly right. All game theory.
Chris, you had an interesting situation last week when you were picking up. Didn't you have Drake May, and you doubled down on some cards with him, I believe?
Oh, I didn't realize I did that last week because I've done something very similar this week. But I did in our in the fantasy league, or the league we're doing here. I took the strategy of using a bad quarterback and a really good defense facing them, and then putting some cards in them that got me extra points for turnovers by my quarterback, and helped and also got the point for the defense. And so had a couple of massive weeks there, and in our single player game managed to beat the number 4 head coach and the fantasy expert controlling them. So
nice
strategy paid off last week. I didn't realize, usually I mix it up. I didn't realize I was doing something similar this week. It's been a long one between work and Smash Up, and then my in-laws were around. So we actually went over to
it's always fun, man, right? It's fun times, man. You're living the dream, Chris. You're living the dream.
No one's going to feel bad for me. We went over to Kona. We swam with the manta rays. It was, I'm talking about how tired I am, what a long week it was, but it was awesome. So
that sounds like a great week, right? It sounds like a very fun week.
Yeah, we just went out swimming with the rays and whatnot. Out in Kona Beach.
Yeah, man. Swimming with the manta rays. Going to get lunch or something after that.
Usual day, usual case of the
but we do have some very interesting matchups this week. Reggie, have you made any acquisitions before the trade deadline?
I remember telling you guys yesterday that I am on that or last week, I should say, that I'm on that waiver wire like Walmart, man. I'm in there every single week. Every single week I'm shopping on the waiver wire. I'm not really making any trades because a lot of my people were injured. Nobody wants to trade for the guys I have. And I'm not trading CMC, so it's now that he's back. So those are pretty much the biggest kind of trade bait I have. So I didn't really have a lot of guys to be trade for, but I've been very active on the waiver wire this morning, guys. As recently as this morning, I picked Pearsall back up. I had dropped him to kind of maneuver my waiver wire because I heard Pacheco might be coming back. So I did some middle of the night having to drop somebody, get Pacheco, add him to my injury reserve in hopes he comes back in the next couple of weeks or so. And then I'll pick Ricky Pearsall back up. And somebody in my league had dropped Amari Cooper. So I picked him up. Right. I was able to get Amari Cooper and Pearsall this morning. Very happy. Feel very happy about that. Let's just say that. But I've more been on the waiver wire than with the trades.
Chris?
Well, look. Yeah, I mean, actually, it's interesting. So fewer trades for me this year, too. I've had one or two. I had a league where I swapped Ramadre for Jaden Reed. You could argue the side of the trade, but if you looked at my team, I had my running backs were full. I had Jacobs, James Cook, Aaron Jones, Ramadre. I've got a fifth guy I can't remember. I mean, my running backs were just Ramadre was never going to see the light of day. Meanwhile, my receiver room was not as plentiful. So it's been a good one for me so far. Yeah, it's funny. So I will take the slings and arrows. I definitely was wrong in questioning Reggie and what he was doing last week. But I will give myself at least a little pat on the back that Pearsall was one of my big picks. Had him going in a bunch of the smash up leagues. Same hybrid league, with the DFS. I did not have my roster. It's a 22-team league, so he's already owned. But I did start him in DFS, and he obviously blew up for me for a very cheap price. So both, I'll say for this week, I know we're probably about to get to a bunch of players, but both him and Juwan Jennings are guys where if they're out there, I'd go grab them. I think they've got a great matchup. Kittle is questionable, and Seattle, which is crazy because I think we all remember them for decades having this just fearsome defense. They do not this year.
They do not. Right, absolutely.
Reggie, I know you have to leave kind of in a hurry this week, but I did.
I got about 40 minutes. Got a little bit of time, but definitely a little bit earlier than usual.
I'm going to do another stardom or cinema segment. And I'm going to put a disclaimer in here in case anything goes whack. Yes, Reggie, we're going to talk Najee.
You're not going to mention Najee. You're not going to mention Najee. Is that what you're saying? Is that what we're alluding to? You should have texted me this, James. I could have just not came on today. I could have been relaxing, enjoying my Saturday morning here, man. It's just, okay. All right, so evidently more Najee, more Najee shade is going to be incoming. I'm glad you at least prepared me for it.
Okay, so our first stardom, Green Bay Packers versus Chicago Bears. Josh Jacobs.
Come on, man. Of course. I heard he's questionable. If he's healthy, these are the starters, the people that you don't think about. If he's healthy, you got to run him out there. Unless you're in a situation like the Hawk where you have a preponderance of backs, which I'm kind of starting to now that Christian McCaffrey's come back. Now I got Najee Harris, I got Tyrone Tracy, I got Christian McCaffrey. I'm starting to have so many backs. And if Isaiah Pacheco comes back, I'm going to be in a similar situation where I just have so many backs, then maybe you start to look at benching a Josh Jacobs. But you would have to be pretty deep in the running back department, in my opinion, to bench Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, he logged a full practice yesterday, so I think he should be good. He was one of these kind of at this point, I basically just ignore the Wednesday injury report. I used to right? Every single day. Now the guy's oh, he missed Wednesday. I'm like, I don't care. Wake me up if he misses Thursdays.
Correct.
Correct. But totally agree with Reggie. I don't have a lot to add, so I won't stand up on a soapbox.
Okay. Now, here's one that kind of always gets me because I like the Lions. But some weeks, it's all David Montgomery. Some weeks, it's all Jahmyr Gibbs. This week, they say start David Montgomery. The Lions are at home against the Jaguars.
That for Chris?
So the Jaguars are one of the worst defenses against the run, and I think the Lions are going to win this game by 30 points. So
goodness,
this is actually one of the weeks I would say start start them both. I mean, start either one if you have them, and if you have both of them, unless again you just have a preponderance of riches. One of the few weeks I feel really good just throwing them both into my starting lineup, and I feel like this is the kind of trap week where I'm going to say this, and the Jaguars and Mac Jones will put up like the game of the century, and just to shut me up. But I think you could start both, and there's a good chance they both get 80 plus yards, and they both get a touchdown. To be honest.
Yeah, I believe you can't. If you are in a blessed position, if you can bench either one of those guys, in my opinion. I think if you have Montgomery, you're probably running them out there weekly. If you have Gibbs, you're probably running them out there weekly. I wouldn't bench either unless you just got a ton of guys.
Start Jonnu Smith. The Raiders are at the Dolphins.
Jonnu Smith, like the tight end for the.
For
you
the
say Jonnu Smith?
Dolphins. Jonnu.
Goodness, I mean, I'm not. I'm not. I mean, I'm. When you look at a team where the second receiver, people aren't even excited about that guy, right? So you look at Miami, people aren't even excited about Waddle there right now. Like people are down on in the Hill. The Hill expectations have been dampened significantly. So when you look at the top guy, Tyreek Hill, dampened expectations. Jalen Waddle, he's down a little bit. Where do you think that bumps Jonnu Smith down to? Like Jonnu Smith, in my opinion, would be down below those other two guys. So maybe Jonnu Smith to get you a couple touchdowns. And I like Jonnu Smith more, guys, in best ball drafts than I like him in redraft format. Like I got him in best ball. Maybe he falls into the end zone because I got him in a lot of best ball formats where I would literally draft him in the very last round. But redraft, I feel like you should have a lot better, a lot more options, in my opinion. Especially how big does your league have to be, guys, for Jonnu Smith to be your starting tight end when everybody else is healthy? I think you got 14 teams or so, right? You're gonna go pretty deep into the teams before you get to a place where you're gonna start a Jonnu Smith.
I think this is a matchup type situation.
What is the matchup that he's going against? Are they like number one against the tight end? Is it like that?
No, he's going against the Raiders and
5 against the tight end.
Fifth worst. Raiders are giving up 15 points a game to tight ends. Pull up the data by it onto the right. I mean, this year so far, 542 yards and 5 touchdowns to tight ends.
In totality, we're in like week 11, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of tight ends don't get but they've given up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends.
So maybe if you are desperate, right, guys? But you got to have injuries. Me personally, I will tell you, I'm in a unique tight end situation. Luckily, my league, Evan Ingram was on the bench, so I was able to go and grab him and throw him in, or on the waiver wires, we would throw him in. But I have Cade Otton and Trey McBride. Those are my two tight ends. They're both off this week together. So if you have a situation like that where both your starters are out and you got to go mining the waiver wire for a tight end, I think you could do worse than Jonnu Smith. Let's not get crazy. You could do worse than him, but I think you could do better also.
Yeah, I have a bit of a similar view, which is I feel like I mean, look, let's I think Reggie's said it right. I think Jonnu is a great value pick for the week. I think if you are desperate, like hopefully in your league, you've got a better tight end. If a couple guys are banged up, if everyone has 2 tight ends they've been picking up, if you have 2 great tight ends, they're both on a bye. And if you are scouring the waiver wire and you really need someone to pick and you're choosing between faint options, sure. Jonnu, good matchup, could put up a good game. I think another guy in that boat I'm taking a look at is Will Disley. Again, not a guy I'm like, you must go get this guy, but if you're desperate, Chargers go against the Bengals. Disley has sort of taken over for Hayden Hurst there, and he's had 30-plus yards the last few games. Only knock on him is he hasn't gotten the end zone. But we just did a video on this, which is why I have actually all these data off my fingertip. I don't actually know all this data on every player. So giving up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends and 6 touchdowns to tight ends in 10 weeks. So 2 guys, if you're desperate, or best ball, or the third situation might be if you're setting a DFS or smash up lineup and you want to get a cheaper tight end so you can spend more money on your other players.
Nice value. You probably can get good value on him.
Absolutely.
Your guy here, Chris, start Drake May against the Rams. May leads the NFL in quarterback rushes, scrambles, and scramble yards since taking over. He's averaged more yards per scramble than Jaden Daniels. What do you think here?
Yeah, I it's funny. It's a little bit of the same situation as Smith, right? If you are in a league and if you've been playing all season, I really hope that you've got a better option than Drake May. With that said, maybe you don't. Maybe you've had a couple guys get hurt. Maybe you just made a trade. Maybe you've got an injured player that got a million cases, right, where you're desperate and you're scouring the wire saying, who do I pick up to plug in from what's actually available on my waiver wire? Good chance it could be Drake May. Without rehashing all the scenarios from before, very similar in terms of DFS. If you're looking for a cheaper quarterback option, it is a good matchup, and May gets you some points with his feet. Not a fluke. He ran the ball in college, so he makes for a nice sneaky value play, but certainly not the optimal guy to have.
It's like pretty much close to the Jono Smith feedback there. I kind of co-sign that with Drake May. He's a guy where maybe you have to put him in and maybe a week or so he gets you 20, 30 points. I don't know. Like randomly, he might randomly do it. But hopefully it's not something that you have to depend on this week to happen.
Okay, guys, the Clowns. They're playing the Aints. Start Nick Chubb. Yay or nay?
Of course. Come on, man. Stop it. You didn't wait all this time for this guy to come back to leave him on your bench, man.
It's so hard. So listen, I will say this. If there's a week you're tempted to start Nick Chubb, it is against the Saints rushing defense with a lot of other tough matchups out there. For all the reasons we've said, the last couple players. But man, he just sucks. He's hit 50 yards, I think, one time. He's averaging like point something yards per carry. Yeah, look, if I'm going to be starting some of the Browns, I think they're going to fall behind. I think you're still better off with someone like Tillman in your lineup. Also like this matchup for the Saints, but I really want to like Chubb. I really want to think he just needs to get his legs back under him. Happens to some guys after an injury, but right now it's just hard to watch. Reggie, what do you think?
Similar. We talked about this a while back ago, weeks ago, and I feel like throughout the show, when we do the show, we're going to be reminded about stars that kind of hold your lineup hostage. And I'll give you guys an example. Brandon Ayuk was holding my lineup hostage because I have to run him out there. I have to. He's getting me 4 points, 3 points, 5. He's getting me nothing. And I got to run the guy out there every week. You know why I got to run him out there every week? Because I can't live with him going off on my bench, because when he's on my bench and he gets me like 25 points, I'm thinking this is the 3rd round pick. This is the pick that I invested on this guy come into fruition, and I wasn't even there the week for it to capitalize on a week that I would have had to capitalize on it. So you either got to manage your emotions and be ready to drop guys you drafted very early, or I think it's going to be very hard for people. It's kind of like my McCaffrey situation. He's projected to get 20 points his first game out. He didn't get 20 points, but I can't bench him. I'm going to have to run him out there. Whether he gets me 12, 13, 20, 15, I'm going to have to keep running them out there. And I feel like with players like Chubb, especially, where you may have waited for them to get back, depending on how long you carry that person, because somebody might grab him right before he comes back. So that person's lucky. They're not as best invested if they grabbed him right before he came back. But if you held him for like 4 or 5 weeks, I think it's just hard to hold him out because you're scared of that go-off game and really wasting things at that point, because that's the only reason you got him. He goes off, he's on your bench.
Matchup of the week. Redbirds against the Steelers. Start Russell Wilson.
I can say, well, James, we were thinking about it. He's a guy who, so another guy in the video that actually just said on he's a guy like, I mean, again, so the video we did is on like value picks. It's on like late waiver wire ads. So these guys are all going to be in the same vein of, are they guys I want to be banking on? No. Do I have a quarterback on a bye week and another one injured? Am I scouring the waiver wire, looking for someone I can plug in who might still be on the waivers today, the day before the game? Yeah, look, the Ravens give up the second most points to quarterbacks. Wilson's had 19 plus points in 2 out of his 3 weeks. Seems to be having, developing good chemistry with Pickens. And he's only something like 21% started in Yahoo. So Again, I don't have all these memorized. I just have it for a few players. The video
Listen,
also might be
I
on your
am
waiver
using
wire.
Yahoo. It
Yeah.
just so happens I am using Yahoo Sports. Played
So
right
you-
into that one.
So he could be on your wire, right? So again, I'm not going to sit here and pound the table for Russell Wilson, but if you need someone, there's a chance he's out there, and I would probably rather grab him and plug him into my lineup than a Mac Jones or Cooper Rush
Oh,
or some of the other guys.
God, if you got to start those guys, right? Like, God, I mean, if you got to start those guys, I mean, I don't want to knock people watching the show, but I would feel like, hey, guys, you have other things in their life maybe you need to be concerned with. If you're running Mac Jones out there in QB, maybe we should start back with beginner shows. Maybe you need beginner fantasy show. You know what? Mac Jones. You know what's crazy about that, guys, is kind of like as we kind of come down to the season, we talked about this last show. We kind of really know what these guys are, so we get a better fleshed out picture. And I think Russell Wilson, I mean, even though his sample size isn't like a 10, 11 game sample size, I think he's just as startable as a Drake May. He kind of fits in the Drake May category that we were just talking about there. Guys that if you're desperate and you got to throw a guy in there, I mean, I'm not depressed if I have to throw a Wilson or a May in there. You know what I mean? I at least feel like I got a shot that week, but I'm not super excited either.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I mean, I say for like the Mac Jones one, I don't even know if you're starting Mac Jones. I don't even know that a beginner fantasy show can help you at that point.
Your season's probably over,
talk
brother.
about investing more as a country in public education to help people if they're starting Mac Jones.
All right, let's start with the sit-ups.
The sit-ups, goodness.
Sit Najee Harris. He's losing touches to Jalen Warren, and he's got a tough matchup. Harris remains the lead back, but he's played fewer than 50% of the snaps in 3 of the last 4 games since Warren returned. Reggie, we're still on so far.
Yeah, so far the fantasy gods have not knocked us off the air for that comment. But I will tell you that the sit Najee kind of goes with what we were saying about the other guys and having a preponderance of riches at that relative position. So once you start to get into that, your conversation changes a little bit. It doesn't become a general like sit Najee, it becomes a sit Najee for who question, more so than just sit Najee. Like,
you got Pacheco coming back. You got CMC.
Is Pacheco back this week though? Pacheco's not playing this week, is he? I don't think he's.
I don't think he's
right. Because I'm about to change my lineup on this show. I told you I tried to put him. I picked him up. I was ready to go in right now, guys, and make that switch. I was about to bench Najee now for Pacheco on my lineup. So let's say you have a situation like that arise. If Pacheco comes back, then you're guys. One of the things you got to pay attention to, it's not just the player. It is the matchup. It is the actual offense. If I'm going to be in the Chiefs offense, I'm going to be in the Steelers offense versus who they're going against. This is a no-brainer for me. I'm going to definitely go into the Chiefs offense. They're going to find a way. I mean, Pacheco's going to fall across the goal line at least once, more than likely. But that is the question. And Najee is a little bit higher on the list than some of those QBs, some of the other players that we discussed that I'm like, are there desperation plays like a Wilson May? Maybe a desperation play. Easier to sit those guys. Najee's not necessarily a desperation play, but let's say that Tyrone Tracy was playing this week, guys, because I told you about all my running backs. Tyrone Tracy's not playing. But if Tyrone Tracy was playing and I had a choice, I'm going to start Tyrone Tracy or Najee Harris. I'm going to start Tyrone Tracy over Najee Harris. You see what I'm saying? Najee starts to bump down the list, but it's a long way before Najee gets to the bottom of that list, though. Like he's still going to be a better start, in my opinion, than a lot of guys this week. But I can see why you would bench him if you got even one other guy that you could start instead of him.
Is he on your video too?
He most certainly is. I think Reggie said my thoughts. I'll say the running back on our video is when we may get to in a moment, which is Audric Estime, who again.
Estime, I had to run him out there on one of my lineups, and I'm sweating it out, guys. I can't lie to you. I'm sweating it out, man.
That's exactly what the video is, though, right? This is not like the number one guy you want to plug into your RB1. This is who may be on your wire today.
Yes.
Huck, the Vikings are playing at the Tennessee Titans. Sit Tony Pollard.
So this is going to go back to, gosh, I don't want to be a broken record, but I think Reggie's spot on here, right? Which is that, yes, tough matchup. I'm not the biggest Tony fan. Well, he's been good, certainly much better this year.
Sure.
But who's your alternative, right? Who are you benching him for? If you have the team I've told you about, and you've got also have Aaron Jones, and you also have man, it's killing me. I'm forgetting who the fifth running back there is. You have some of the other backs on my bench. Well, sure, I'm going to bench Pod. I'm going to start James Cook and Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones.
Absolutely.
Over him. If I'm in, so I do not have that embarrassment of riches in other leagues. So if I'm in a league where, I'm debating between running out him or even like Estimate, I'd rather run out Tony Pollard. I'm not loving it, right. But I'm doing it.
The Colts at the not yet. Anthony Richardson is coming back, and as I guess that they're going to go with him for the rest of the season. But
that's what they say.
Josh Downs,
the rest of the season.
What do you think?
I like Josh Downs, man. I like Josh Downs last year, guys. I just like him as a player, man. I liked him last year. I didn't draft a lot of him this year, and I'm kind of sad about that because I feel like a lot of people didn't draft him in my leagues. He was on the waivers for a good while, but he hasn't been back on them since he started to take off. He's disappeared off the waivers. It's interesting, guys, because I don't know. I don't watch a lot of Colts football, so I don't know if it's better or worse. I feel like Flacco is a better quarterback for some of these receivers. I have to look at it and see, and I feel like Flacco in particular had an affinity for Josh Downs from what I see. He at least was giving him targets. So I need to see that same affinity with Anthony Richardson because Anthony Richardson doesn't seem to have an affinity with any of the wide receivers. He's just not completing a lot of passes. So to me, maybe your quarterback goes up a little bit because of the rushing side of Anthony Richardson, but I feel like the value of your receivers goes down a little bit until Richardson proves that he can consistently get it to wideouts more.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And again, I almost would use the DFS comparison here because I think we'll just keep kind of redundantly talking about who's on your bench for your other options. I think Downs was the one receiver who Richardson was okay with. I mean, not I think Flacco, like you said, a better passer. But for the Colts, they're just not winning this year. And at some point, they're like, well, if we're going to have a bad quarterback, we might as well roll with the young one and see if we can develop
for
him.
Sure.
But yeah, from like DFS, Downs is a guy I've used a few weeks in the past with some pretty good luck. This week, he's not really a guy I'm plugging in. I think it's a tough matchup. I don't fully trust A-Rich. He can do a little bit more at his feet, but he is just inaccurate. Now he'll bomb some balls down the field, a little bit like Justin Fields, the Bears, right? So maybe Downs catches a bomb, or Alec Pierce, another guy, maybe he catches the ball. Yeah. But not really a guy I'm looking. I mean, I'll say Downs has played well enough. His price is starting to creep up on DFS. He was a value play for me for a while, but he's not a guy I'm putting a lot of money on this week.
Reggie, your Falcons are at the Denver Broncos. Start Bo Nix. Just to give you a little background, Nix ranks fourth among all quarterbacks in carries inside the 5, and he's behind only Hurts, Purdy, and Lamar Jackson.
That's impressive. That's an impressive list to be on. To be honest with you,
he's a QB7 in most fantasy points since week 4, averaging nearly 20.4 points as Josh Allen. Josh is averaging 20.7 over the same 6-game span. Your thoughts?
Is it the last 6 games? Is that what it is?
Yes.
The last 6. Okay. Hold on. I'm looking them up here because you're talking the way you're talking them up here. You know what I mean? You're talking him up like, hey, this is a guy I really need to be looking at. I'm looking at here. This is, it's interesting, guys, as I look at Knicks here. This is maybe a touch above what we were talking about with Wilson and May right here, guys. I'm looking at these numbers. So maybe I move him a touch above there when we're talking about guys that I'm not happy. I'm not happy to run Bo Nix out there as my quarterback. I'm not. I'm just not. But when you look at his stats, James, I feel like you did a good job because the way that you talked him up just now, because I came into this like a complete no. I don't even know. I'm not even going to speak on this subject. It's just going to be like a no. But then as you started to talk him up just now, I'm like, well, maybe here's a guy, guys, where you might have a preconceived notion of him in your head, but it pays. This is where you got to go check the stats. You got to really see, maybe it's the scoring in your league, but you got to see how this guy is really doing. And if I look at Bo Nix in my league, he's doing pretty good. He's not 7th in my league, but he's top 20, and he's had some pretty solid games. So just like we were talking about with the Drake May, Russell Wilson situation, I probably would move him above those guys, to be honest with you. I think he deserves that. I would have him above them right now, but still in that category of if I had a Purdy, Lamar's, the Daniels, somebody else to run out there, I prefer to do that. But I'm not sad running a guy out there with numbers like this because he can produce for you.
Yeah, the Falcons give up the 6th most points to quarterback, so this is not a particularly difficult matchup. I kind of agree with Reggie. Again, I would hope you have better options than Nix, but if you don't, if you need someone, if he's on your wire, or if you're looking for the value play for DFS, very similar to Drake May actually, in that Nix is a guy who is an okay passer, kind of up and down there, has gotten some pretty good chemistry with Courtney, but he's a guy that will get you 2 to 4 points a game with his feet. And that's, the equivalent of throwing for an extra, 50 to 100 yards. So there is some value in that.
Reggie, you mentioned this gentleman before. And so the Seahawks are at the 49ers. Start Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, I feel like you got to. No, I mean, if I'm starting Ricky Pearsall, because I'm starting Pearsall. If I'm starting Pearsall, I feel like you got to start Jennings. The only reason, guys, that I like Pearsall, because I personally like Pearsall more than Jennings, but I don't know that that's prudent fantasy advice. You know what I mean? That's like more of like a personal thing because I have an affinity for rookie wide receivers because of the unknown. Like you never know. Like they can be disrespected, similar to rookie quarterbacks, guys. I got Jaden Daniels at the end of a lot of drafts. A lot of these rookies can be disrespected if they're not drafted very early. If they're not like the Marvin Harrison Jr.'s neighbors of the world, then these rookies can drop all the way down or lurk on the waiver wires for half the season or something like that, So Pearsall has been a decent pickup for me. I picked him up. I had dropped him, and I re-picked him up this week, and I probably will start him since I did the same thing this week too, by the way, guys. I benched Jaden Daniels for Brock Purdy this week. And I think I'm looking pretty good. Jaden didn't perform great against the Eagles. Their defense was looking a little stout, so I didn't want to start him. Plus, I knew I was planning to try to run Pearsall and McCaffrey out there to pair with Purdy, as well, guys, as looking at what Purdy did during their last matchup with Seattle, and he went off and did his thing. So that made me keep him in the lineup again this week, and we'll see what happens. But I do like to answer your question, I do like Jennings if you're going to run him out there because I'm running Pearsall out there. It'd be kind of hypocritical for me to say not to run Jennings out there when I'm running Pearsall out there.
This is one of my moments. This was our wide receiver pick on that video I was talking about. So I get to pretend I know a lot of stuff. But no, I like Jennings. So here's the thing. Since Ayuk went down, Jennings, he got banged up in the middle of a game. He left in like the first quarter. And then missed a week. But of the 4 games where he's been healthy since Ayuk went down, he's had 175, 88, 27, unfortunately, one bad game, and then 93 yards.
Nice.
3 touchdowns, now all in the same game. But he's a big red zone target. Even last year when he wasn't getting the yards, he was a guy that would hit in the red zone. So, I definitely like him. I love Pearsall too. I'm a Niners fan, so he's a guy I've got him on more of my rosters. But Jennings, particularly if Kittle misses the game, Jennings is really good in that middle of the field. And I think Jennings becomes an absolute slam dunk if Kittle misses the game. Even if he plays, he's a guy you can start with Ayuk. And Seattle's defense, again, is terrible. So I love the Reggie strategy of loading up 49ers against that defense.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get as many as I can, guys.
Not even a defense, it's an e-fence. I'm not giving a single D in that.
Got to use that one. I like that one, Chris. Chris, the Chiefs at the Bills. Start Kareem Hunt. Even though he's only had one rush over 15 yards and 125 carries.
Goodness.
Right now, last week he saw 10 targets. He's been given 13 opportunities inside the 5 over the last 4 games. And, this could be your last chance to run him out there before the Pacheco comes back.
Yeah, I mean, you made the case for me. I don't even know what to say because you just listed all the reasons why you have to start him. The only other one I'll add is the Bills give up the second most points to running back. So vulnerable defense. I imagine Kansas City's been very run heavy this year. I don't think they're going to abandon that game script against one of the worst run defenses in the league. And so if you were the lucky person to pick up Kareem Hunt in your league, run him out there. Enjoy one more farewell party till Pacheco comes back. Reggie, in your line, I'm in an expert league where I've just been snake bit. Somehow my team's done well, but I've been snake bit. At one point, I had my entire starting lineup except for Joe Burrow was injured. Pacheco being one of those, Rashee Rice being another, all the Chiefs. So I'm sitting and waiting for Pacheco to come back with you.
Yeah, man. Hopefully we get that next week.
What do you think there, Reggie? You agree?
Yeah, why not? I mean, Kareem Hunt, I was one of those guys who was searching. I grabbed Carson Steele. I grabbed Kareem Hunt. I was grabbing when Pacheco went down. I'm on the way from grabbing all kinds of guys. So I had both of them on my team, and then I threw both of them off my team, and instantly regretted that when Kareem Hunt started to go off a little bit. But I kind of, I feel like this show has a theme. This show's theme should be, who do you have on your team? That should be the theme of this show, because that's pretty much it. Almost every question you've asked is going to be, who do you have on your team? If you have, it's almost like putting these guys in tiers, right? So if you have guys in lower tiers, then you don't feel great about starting them, but there's probably somebody in a lower tier than that you really don't feel great about starting. So you can kind of keep going down the tiers, and I'll put Kareem Hunt in the middle tier-ish because of the offense that he's in. He's not necessarily a high-powered tier, but I think the offense puts him in the middle tier because they're going to have opportunities. But not super excited, though. Not super excited. I'm not depressed. I'm not sad about running him out there, but I'm not excited either. It's not like one of the top guys, but I think you start Hunt if you got him, especially given the looming Pacheco return. Might as well try to get something here this week.
It kind of feels like the scene in Titanic where the band is playing as the
right, man
goes down. Enjoy Kareem Hunt, play the music
one more time.
Yeah, exactly.
The Bungles are playing the Chargers. Start Justin Herbert. Herbert, the Chargers ranked 30th in pass plays per game.
Harbaugh does not want to pass the ball, man.
LA's upcoming matches should feature more shootouts starting Sunday. What do you think here? You got Joe Burrow, you got Justin Herbert. Do you start Joe Burrow? You start Justin Herbert?
Of course, start Burrow. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
you saw what happened last week, guys. Luckily, I had Burrow and Chase in the same league in one league. I had 90 points. I had 87, guys. It was 87.17 is what I had after that one game, that because my team that I have the Burrow Chase stack. 87 points coming out of the Thursday night game.
You weren't even sweating the week. The Thursday night game happened.
It happened. My week was done. I'm first place in that league, and Joe Burrow has really been one of the catalysts, one of the reasons that I'm first place, because he's better. Burrow was being disrespected during the draft season. He wasn't being drafted like a top quarterback. So if you got a Joe Burrow, because that's our same team, guys, I have Saquon Barkley on that same team. So I was able to, if you got Joe Burrow, more than likely, if you're playing drafting in the leagues like I was drafting, if you have Joe Burrow, you probably have some good players with him. With how disrespected he was, you could have drafted Joe Burrow in like the 5th league this past draft season. So that means you could stack great players in your first 3 to 4 rounds, get a Joe Burrow right there, and I'm pretty sure he's probably working out like that in a lot of lineups for people.
That is usually my strategy. I usually don't reach for a great quarterback. I'll grab 2 mid-tier ones, and usually one works out. They don't always. For every Joe Burrow, you grab a Dak Prescott. For every Jake Daniels, you grab Kyler Murray. But So I'll give you a quick, interesting fact, and I'll, James, answer your question very directly. So last week on Smash Up, we have our weekly tournament, free to play, prizes go to the top 50. So Hybo, my co-founder, did a deep dive in the data, looked at the top 50 lineups. Let me ask you a question so you guys can guess. Of the top 50 lineups, keep in mind, you've got Smash cards, you're playing on players, you can change the equation a bit. Of the top 50 lineups, how many of those lineups do you think had Jamar Chase in them?
The top 50. I would say 50? A good 95%, right? I would feel like most of those would have had your Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow lineups would have pretty much floated to the top, I would imagine. Yeah. But the cards make that a little bit more interesting, right? Though, right? Because the cards make that more interesting, but I would feel like a good 95%. I would say most of them. James,
what do you think? It's how you're about to jump in there too.
I'm going to say a little lower. I'm going to say it's like 48%.
So less than half for James.
Yeah.
So Reggie's the winner here. I actually guessed a little bit lower too when Hybo asked me this, but it was 48 out of 50 had Jamar Chase.
Yeah, bro.
He's got such an unholy week for like a wide receiver. He sold his soul for that week. If you had him in your lineup, well, he is a top receiver. He still costs a little less than a couple of the other guys, so he was just.
No first rounder though, Chris, right? He was still going in the first round of a lot of leagues. He was just going disrespectfully in the first round of a lot of my leagues, like 7th, 8th. Like you can get him all the way towards the end of the first round, but he didn't really drift into the second in a lot of my drafts. But I think you're right. And another reason, guys, I'm in a lot of I'm in a lot of leagues, so you get a chance to see the patterns a little bit when you're in a lot of leagues and you're noticing that all of your 1 or 2s had this guy in their lineup. For that particular week, this guy's just tearing it up. And Jamar Chase always has that ungodly 40, 50 point upside. Like his upside is incredible. And he's touched these type of numbers before. And I think that's what makes him so highly regarded, because he'll have weeks where he's just a regular guy and then he goes Superman a week or two, just wins you a week by himself.
So agreed. Now I do realize we've never actually addressed James's question, what about Herbert? So yeah, the short answer for me, he is, talked about the video earlier. We have multiple, things that come out through the week, and he's been my smash start in a couple of things. I think again, particularly for obviously on your team, he's on your team. Good chance you're starting him. If you're looking at something like a DFS lineup, his value is still low. I mean, you can get him really cheap. I should say his value is high because his cost is cheaper. But first, the Bengals are terrible. They're like I think 4th worst team of. Maybe wrong off the top of my head, about the 4th worst defense against quarterbacks. You've seen them get torched a bunch this year. And Herbert, San Diego still runs the ball a lot. They've been slowly trusting Herbert more. He's been kind of getting into this offense. I did pull this up on the side here. So the last few weeks, Herbert has had 349, 279, 282, and then 1 duck, 164 passing yards. And in the last 3 games, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown. So, the 1 week was against Tennessee, who's got a pretty strong defense. So, yeah, I think against the Bengals, Herbert makes a really strong play if you're in a 50-50 situation in your league, or if you're looking for a value pick, someone's a little bit cheaper in your DFS or sleeper lineup.
The only thing that ever gives me concerns about, because I love Justin Herbert, man. I've liked him since he was a rookie. I always thought that he was a solid, steadily performing guy. But the thing that concerns me with them now it's not him. It's Harbaugh. Like Herbert will never concern me. Harbaugh does not like throwing the ball. He will run it a million times if he can. And it's kind of like he likes rotating backs. He just likes running the ball. It's defense, run the ball with Jim Harbaugh. And then you have a great quarterback that can make all the throws. I think it's working out. Like I can't knock what they're doing there. It looks to be working out for them quite well. But that's kind of what we were talking about last week, guys. Teams that do very well without your guy participating. I talked about this last week. You can have teams that do very well without your player that's on that team even participating whatsoever. And that's kind of what Justin Herbert's a guy that can get you 300, get you 100. And that team might still win by 15, 20 points either way. So it's kind of like I'm not super excited to start Justin Herbert, but just like a broken record on this show, he would be I would probably start him before Drake May, the crop of quarterbacks that we've already discussed, right? The Drake May, the Russell Wilsons of the world. I would start them before those guys. I would like to.
And so this is interesting. So last week it was the Purdy one, and Reggie got to come back and dunk on us this week. This week it may be the Herbert call, because I think I like Herbert a little better than Reggie.
Likes
so
definitely
we'll see
more.
what happens. I got the basketball hoop back there. One of us can dunk start next week.
I think he can have a good game though, guys. Because here's another thing, and to not to hedge here, but I do have Quentin Johnston, and I'm starting him.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to start Quentin Johnston this week, because of that. So I'm hoping that Herbert does well. Harbaugh just scares me. It's Harbaugh more than Herbert.
Well, that's giving away all my secrets. Quentin's a good, can be a good start, and then I think I mentioned the league earlier where you have the lineup and the DFS, and did not unfortunately get him in the draft, but in my DFS I am starting Ladd McConkey this week.
Very nice. Glad. I think I'm starting Quentin in our Smash Up League this week. I gotta look at our Smash. I did a Smash Up lineup, and I think I started Quentin in that lineup. I gotta look and see who I got there.
Let's see. The Texans and the Cowboys. Sit Rico Dowell and Jake Ferguson.
I mean, Cooper Rush had 45 yards last week. Wasn't it 45 yards that Cooper Rush had last week? I don't think Cooper Rush had the same amount of yards as Rico Dowdle. I feel like Rico Dowdle had more yards than Cooper Rush last week. And I'm not even like, I don't even think I'm talking out of my behind here, guys. I really think that Rico Dowdle had more yards than Cooper Rush had last week, guys.
Cooper Rush lost as many fumbles too as he had yards per pass attempt.
I mean, that's sad, right? Like, that's sad.
It was the fewest passing. It was the fewest passing yards in a game with at least 20 passing attempts since 2000.
20 attempts? I didn't know he had that many attempts. I just knew didn't have them. He had 20 attempts and 45 passing yards. Goodness gracious! Were they going up against 85 Bears? Who were they playing? Like, who were they playing? I mean, that's just embarrassing.
Dallas had 49 net passing yards on 26 attempts. And Trey Lance was even worse.
That's gross, man. That's gross. I mean,
yeah, I don't say this very often. I'm not the most athletic. I don't have a great arm. I haven't played in pro style offense. I think I might be able to get more than 45 passing yards in that many attempts. So.
Goodness gracious, 20 guys, 20 attempts, 45 yards. You have guys getting that in one attempt. Like who guy just catches the ball, just runs for 40 yards.
Well, I would just throw like 20 screen passes. I would just check down and hope that CeeDee Lamb could just break one or Turpin and see if.
Man.
Yeah, I'm not excited to start any Cowboy this week. I mean, I'm
playing Lamb too. I hope he does terrible. I'm playing him this league. I need Lamb to do terrible for me this week, guys, because I'm playing against him this week.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Bounce back of the week. Ladd McConkey. What do you think? We were just talking about.
There's your guy, Chris. There's your guy.
I like him. Again, look, the Bengals don't stop anybody. Their defense. It's sort of weird. If you look at the NFC, I feel like there's a bunch of teams I feel really good about. In the AFC, I feel like some of the best teams, record-wise, have these just high-powered offenses, but they're in a shootout every week. This is both the Ravens and the Bengals, because they can't stop anyone. And look, this is, again, where I stick my foot in my mouth and I'm proven wrong, weeks later. But I do feel like we see this every year. And in the playoffs, that just is a recipe for disaster. In the playoffs, your offense is going to get stopped by a really good defense, or at least limited at some point, and your defense has to be able to stop people. So, I mean, now we're getting more to like NFL strategy to answer your question, though. So, yeah, against the Bengals, with the way Herbert's been coming on, love Ladd McConkey, would absolutely start him this week. In fact, I am. So.
All right, Reggie. Well, you want to give us your starting lineup for the week and your final thoughts before we get you out of here?
Let me pull it up here. I'm just going to pull up one of my random home leagues because I happen to have it right here in front of me. So I'm running Brock Purdy out there again, as I explained before, guys. Running Brock Purdy out there. I got Drake London. I'm running out there this week. Quentin Johnston, I'm not super excited about, but I am probably going to run him out there. Ricky Pearsall. Amari Cooper right now, questionable. But if he plays, I'm gonna start him. But he's questionable, so I'm not really sure. My guy Najee Harris, Christian McCaffrey, Evan Ingram is what I got, and I got Boswell as my kicker and Denver as my defense. I've been running with Denver kind of consistently, so I'm gonna run them out there again this week.
Any final thoughts? Any stardom sit-ems we missed? How you feeling?
I'm feeling. My final thoughts would be, hopefully for us Pacheco owners, guys, we have something to rejoice about next week. Hopefully when we come on next week, guys, and we talk on this show, we'll be discussing the joyous return of Isaiah Pacheco. You know what I mean? Because then that'll complete my line. I'm working my way back into my lineup that I drafted. You know what I mean? Like I also got some guys missing, like Rashee Rice and Ayuk. They're out of here. But if I can get Pacheco back, I'm trying to work my way back into the team I actually drafted, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So hopefully we have something to talk about. Enjoy the second half of the season, guys, and I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, Reg, you have a good one, man.
All right, see you later, guys.
Yeah. Chris, what's your best lineup for this week?
Well, why don't we, like last week, we talk a little bit about my smash up lineup. So
okay.
Going against the fifth boss in our single player mode on Smash Up. And so if you want, I can share screen. I can even just show you the lineup.
Sure, go ahead. You put it up, and then we'll put it up.
There you go. So you may notice this may look a little bit better than our lineups in our league, which I'm not showing since we're competing against each other this week. But it's one of the reasons in our single player mode, the bosses get harder, the head coaches get harder as you go on. There's 6 total. I'm on number 5. And they get harder. One way that balances out, though, is you get an extra 1,000 in your Smash card budget every week, win or lose. So I've got a little bit more money to put on these cards. So for the week, I did something very similar to, I guess, what I did with Drake May last week. I started Mac Jones, the quarterback, but I've got this goldfish memory on him, whereas you may remember, for every turnover, I get 8 points. So I get the feeling he could have a terrible, terrible game against Detroit. So I'm going to capitalize on his turnovers. I'm also starting that Detroit defense, playing takeaway cards. So I'm also going to get every turnover Mac Jones has, I'm going to double up my points on those turnovers. I also have defense wins championships on Detroit, which basically means that if Detroit wins, it's almost like it's like a straight prop bet or something. If Detroit wins, I get 15 points. I like the odds of Detroit beating Jacksonville a lot. Across the rest of the lineup, I have Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, and Devon Achane. I'm doing that because I'm using Hellacious halfbacks. This is a card that knocks my quarterback score down a little bit, which I can afford because Mac Jones isn't very good, but it increases all my running back scores by 1.75. So love, not only these 3 running backs in general, but if you look at the matchups real quick, McCaffrey's going against Seattle. Love that matchup. We've got Kyron Williams against New England. New England, got chopped up by Tank Bigsby and a few other mediocre running backs. I love that. And then Achane, so you have a little bit of money there, but Achane is a guy who's going up against Las Vegas, the Raiders defense. Again, terrible run defense. So love his odds of playing well. Then a wide receiver, I have Cortland Sutton, who's had some real chemistry with Bo Nix. And the guy we just talked about, Ladd McConkey, really like the odds of him putting up a strong game. Win cheaper at tight end. Started Will Disley, who we talked about earlier. Like the matchup with the Bengals, like the fact that he's been, the top tight end target for Herbert. Look, don't think he's going to have a great week, but I think he's going to have a good week. Also playing Human Vulture on him, where basically I get 2 times the points on his touchdowns. So, look, he's 6'4", 265 pounds. He's definitely a big red zone target. And then round thing out my kicker, I've got Jake Bates. Again, I think that Detroit will just stomp the Jaguars. I think there's a good opportunity that Bates gets a lot of field goal tries. And if not, at a minimum, gets a lot of extra points. So, like my odds.
All right. Let me go with my lineup here, and this is, of course, the lineup that I'm playing against uh, my guys this week in the Sports Crib League, and I've started Josh Allen. Of course, I got Jamar Chase in there. I ran Debo out. I'm off to a very good start. I started Saquon Barkley, so I'm off. I already have 32.8 points on that
Woo!
this week. I got DeAndre Swift as one running back. I got Mark Andrews as my tight end, and I'm carrying Nick Chubb as my flex. I've also, of course, got Justin Tucker in there as my kicker, and Kansas City is my defense. So, but now I'm going to get down to my Smash Mouth League here with you too. Gonna
Yeah,
share.
who are you starting in Smash Mouth this week?
Okay, let's see. I'm going to go. Let's see. I'm going to go with our league. My league lineup here first. Okay. All right. Jared Goff is my starting quarterback. I have David Montgomery and Joe Mixon as my running backs.
Like that?
Jameson Williams and DeAndre Hopkins are my wide receivers. Jonnu Smith, I ran out there tight end, cheap. Derrick Henry is my flex. Jake Bates is my kicker. And I took Green Bay as my defense. Now, let's see. Some of the cards that I played Hurricane Season and West Coast Offense. Of course, since I have what Goff, Montgomery, Jameson Williams. What the I think I started almost every Detroit guy that I could that was within my budget. But you introduced something that was very unique this week, and that was, is it flashcard? Flash? What did you call that? Where you can pick a certain number of players and then it'll be filled in according to your budget?
Oh, the lightning lineups. Yeah, so the lightning picks. Did you?
Yeah, can you explain those to us a little bit here, will you?
Yeah, here, let me share. I'll set a weekly lineup. Let me share a screen again real quick because these are an interesting new feature. One sec. So I will say this, by the way, this is all for practice. Anyone who's seeing me as co-founder setting a lineup for the weekly tournament, I can do this on the back end, but just to be very transparent, you will not see my lineups in the standings. I'm obviously not eligible to win anything. So before anyone thinks that when I'm showing a weekly lineup that this is is somehow shady or wrong, just know I want to be very clear. This is only on the back end. This is only for practice, only so I can see what the players see. But I cannot win. You will not see my username of Sports Junkie in the actual weekly tournament standings at all, as I am disqualified. But in league play, if you play in like certain leagues we have, like our Lightning leagues, you will. I also cannot win the prize in that league, but you will see me there competing against you guys. And so feel free to see if you've can beat my teams. So the way these work, look, you click on it, you either you can fill a whole lineup or one in between. It's not a fully optimized, so it's not going to always just give the best player where everyone has the best lineup, but we'll look for players within like a certain salary band to fit. So either, you can do it for your whole lineup. I can go across here. It actually works best if you start with defense for some reason. We're still working on some of the kinks. So you can set from, all the way across and say, hey, look, I want to fill out my whole lineup. Most is pretty good. I'd probably go replace Braylon Allen if it was me. I don't trust him as much, obviously. And I think for this much money, I can probably get better running backs. Again, it's not perfect, but it's a way to set a lineup really quick so you can tinker with it and not have to like hit every player. Or the other
And
one,
you don't have to accept the first player that they give you. You can,
yeah. Or let me see if I've got one that's partially set here. 1 second. Often these are partially set. Again, I can't. These don't even show up in the final thing. All right, let me actually. I think I actually did this with the lightning thing. So let me say, let's just say I've set my entire lineup. I picked these players on my own, and I have 7,600 left, and I need a running back and a receiver. I don't really know what I want to do. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit lightning, and this is going to really quickly give me Mixon and Tyreek. Hey, not bad, right? So again, it's a way just to either save some time, or maybe if you're a little bit more of a novice player and just want some help, it's a way to kind of get some of that help. Or if you're doing 4 lineups, you can kind of set them really quickly. And James, you said, you don't have to keep these picks. Either I could say, well, I don't really want, I love, Mix. I don't love Tyreek this week because of his wrist issues. So I'm going to select again. I was going right back to Tyreek. Should be giving me some randomization. Yep. There's Cooper Kupp, I guess was a fluke. Or again, I could say, okay, this has helped me set most of my lineup. Now I'm going to go in. I'm going to just pick this last receiver because I really like Puka and I want to get him. So it's a chance to maybe spend more of your time picking a couple of the players, tinkering with your lineup and picking the smash cards instead of having to go player by player.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see what the different innovations that you guys come up with. And I thought that was, as soon as I saw it, like, well, let's see what this is all about. And I actually got a pretty decent lineup out of it. So when you're doing the 3 lineup thing, it can give you a lot of good variations there. So
the other one I'm excited for now is we're working on one. It will still be a few weeks away. I don't want to upset our programmers and be very careful and to say the bare bones of this, but one of the things we're working on now I'm really excited for is we're working on a single My Teams page. So we have the weekly game, the single player, the leagues. James, I know you play in all of them. Right now, as of today, you kind of got to go around. Okay, let me look through the different. Let me go to league. No, let me go to weekly. No, let me go here. Or you've got your lineup set. Maybe you pick Juwan Jennings in a couple leagues. And Sunday morning, late breaking news. He twisted his ankle. I don't want to curse my Niners. I should not have used this example. He twists his ankle. You're like, oh, shoot. Which league do I have Jennings in? You're hunting around. It's a little bit of a pain. So we're working on a single page where you can see your teams. You'll see the pictures of the players you have. You'll see their names. So you can scroll really quickly. And if Jennings is out, you can say, oh, I need Jennings. Or if there's a league you're in, you've just forgotten to set a lineup on the My Teams page. You'll be able to see the league. You'll see that it's blank with a button you can click to go set your lineup. So it should be a really big UI improvement that makes it user experience or user interface improvement that just makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker to navigate. So excited for that to come.
All right. Well, make sure they tell everybody where they can find you, man, and how they can join the league and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, come find us over at SMASHUPSPORTS.com. We've got 3 modes, as you've heard before on the show. Everything's free, right? So no entry fees here, no pay to win mechanics. You're not buying a bunch of card packs or anything when you hear us reference Smash cards. It's just fun, free fantasy. And there's weekly tournaments, free to play, but there are some prizes for the first 50, some cash prizes. There is league play, so you can either form your own league, or we have some public leagues, some lightly needed leagues and stuff where the winners get a bit of cash or they get like a free jersey. And then we have our single player tournament, much like a game like Street Fighter or Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. There are 6 increasingly harder head coaches. Your goal is to beat them all in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. And if you do, you qualify for the Tournament of Champions in the postseason that will have $10,000 in cash prizes, so some good motivation. And on top of that, just a little bit of extra fun too. A lot of these head coaches are controlled by fantasy experts. People like Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros, Andrew Erickson from Fantasy Pros, Ming the chef from Smash Up, Scott Fish from Scott Fishbowl tournaments. So a chance to go up against some of the guys you love and try to compete head to head and try to beat a fantasy expert. So ton of fun. Come over to SmashUpSports.com. and try your luck today.
All right, man. Any final thoughts for tonight? For tomorrow, and while we're kind of winding down in our season, any last minute advice for some of the guys that might be out there looking?
I'll do one more, just spin around the group of people that we slowly hit on them, the ones we talked about in the video that came out, which is, look, if you're desperate, if you need some guys this week, Russell Wilson from your Steelers, James, makes a good start, might be on your waiver wire. Audric Estime, we didn't really talk about him that much. Outtouched Javonte Williams 14-1 last week, looks to be the starter. Again, I don't think he's a world beater, but if you've got an empty spot, I'm in an experts league, and I got a bunch of injured guys, got a couple of guys like neighbors on bye week, so got to go pick up and plug into your lineup. Wide receiver, any of the Niners, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, two guys I love. A great matchup against Seattle. And without Ayuk, these guys are playing like gangbusters, and Kittle may miss the game, making them even better. And then at tight end, take a look at Will Disley, starting for the Chargers against a weak Cincinnati defense. Again, not a guy that's going to get you, 30 points, but a guy that can go get you 50 yards and a touchdown. And then for defense, we didn't really talk about, but the Miami Dolphins. They were a heralded defense coming into the season, had a rough stretch with Tua out when they're just on the field constantly. And the Dolphins were rotating that poo-poo platter of quarterbacks we always talked about. Now that Tua's back and playing, and they're playing well again, and the defense isn't on the field for, 40 minutes a game. They're playing good. And this week they've got the Oakland Raiders. So Raiders give the most points to defenses. And that Miami defense is either going to be facing Gardner Minshew, or if he gets benched for like the fourth week in a row mid-game. Raiders, AOC's hurt, so they're going to be pulling out Desmond Ridder, who has never been good with the Falcons or the Raiders. So if Miami's on your waiver wire and you need a defense, really strong start opportunity. So those are kind of my parting thoughts for the week.
All right, man. Well, hey, good matchups this week. Kansas City, Buffalo, Steelers, Ratbirds. And I think is that Seattle 49ers game for first place?
It might be. I feel like the Niners have come on strong. I like to think that's not the case. But now you've got me looking this up, looking up the standings real quick on my phone. Give me 1 second here, because now I'm
I think Seattle was a game ahead.
You could easily be right. We started the season. No, we're a game ahead of Seattle. It's Arizona. Arizona's one game ahead.
Arizona, okay. Yeah.
So that's the team. Arizona's come on a bit strong, but I will say this. Point differential tends to matter in the long run. We are plus 31 on the season, and Arizona's only plus 18. So hopefully that means good things for us.
All right, man. Well, hey, as usual, great show. Looking forward to talking to you next week and seeing what you and Reggie got in store for me. As always, appreciate your time, my man. You have a good weekend.
Absolutely. James, you too. Have a good one, and good luck to your Steelers this weekend.
All right, man. Have a good one. Good luck to your 49ers. I need them too.
The mirror thing always gets to me, right? Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Good luck to both of you. Have a good one.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. We appreciate you checking out our fantasy show. Check back with us next week and see how good or how bad we did. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your football, everyone.